Senator Armstrong, Metal Gear's patriot of the American dream. Funny Valentine, Jojo's bizarre president of the United States. So, politics, am I right? Forget debates and campaigns, let's see who's the better brawler. He's Wiz and I'm Boomstick, and it's our job to analyze their weapons, armor, and skills to find out who would win a death battle. Stephen Armstrong was born a proud citizen of the United States, and from birth lived the American dream in Texas. He was a star quarterback for the University of Texas and, as any proud-blooded American would, enrolled in the military, specifically the Navy. He sacrificed a budding sports career for this, but it'd be worth it to prove his mettle. Unfortunately, he never got to. He never actually saw live combat, and after settling back down in Colorado, began looking for new ways to prove his might. And he'd find a way to take his strength to the next level thanks to newfangled tech hitting the markets. Cybernetics. Or, to be more precise, nanomachines, son! They harden in response to physical trauma. In addition to his physical power, he'd begin building political power as well, running for election to the Colorado State Senate, eventually becoming a senator. His policies included, halving the state budget, which would have the effect of privatizing the police force and letting the private military company World Marshal take control of the state police. Whoopsie! Not terribly surprising given Armstrong had strong ties to the PMC desperado, and was plotting to remake the United States, saying he intended to make America great again while planning a second Revolutionary War. Eventually, he'd be investigated for this. You'd think an ongoing investigation looking into ties to PMCs would hurt his political campaign, but nope, he was considered a shoo-in nominee for the presidency. While he didn't win the election, he continued his own plots, such as mass-producing cyborg child soldiers and kickstarting a war with Pakistan in order to reboot the war economy and pull America out of a recession. You know, regular politician things. Even more dastardly were his efforts to expand on World Marshal, which he had recently become the de facto CEO of, recruiting a legion of cybernetic warriors through both diplomacy or bloody combat if he had to. Eventually, though, he was confronted in a Pakistani airbase by a different cyborg super soldier, Raiden. Not wanting the truth to get out, Armstrong personally entered the battle to kill Raiden. Those bloody combat interviews came in handy, huh? Well, we say personally, but he had a little help from his giant mech, Excelsis. At first, at least. Then he got out and proved to be even more of a threat than Excelsis itself was. Turns out, those nanomachines are, well, quite frankly, insane. Not only could he totally demolish his own mech, but he could punch the ground so hard that blasts of lava and magma shot up. Being able to breach that far down that quickly would require his punches to be packing a yield worth up to 37 megatons of TNT. And even less advanced soldiers like the Crying Beauty are capable of dodging point-blank light pulses, requiring speeds over 2 times that of the light itself, and they're chumps compared to Raiden and Armstrong. His nanomachines are able to selectively harden specific body parts to superhuman levels, or coat his entire body to a less concentrated degree. They do require a charge and can run out over time, but he can drain power from nearby electronics to top up, and a full battery lasts plenty long enough in a fight. They're even able to reattach severed body parts, or turn injuries into advantages, like when he hardened one of his arm stumps into a makeshift spear. The machines are circulated through his body via his heart, which pumps them through his blood. The heart acts as a core of sorts, and if it's damaged, will hamper the nanomachines. Though, even without his nanomachines, he's able to tank punches from Raiden. Though, Raiden would eventually come out on top. While Armstrong was insanely tough, even able to take hits from a high-frequency blade that severs the bond between atoms and knock Raiden around like a ragdoll, he was eventually overpowered and overwhelmed. Since the machines are circulated via his heart, the hardening comes on a cycle as the blood pulses through him, and if you're fast enough, you can capitalize on this to hit him between refreshes, though the window is very small. Even light-speed characters like Raiden have trouble exploiting it. Despite this, Raiden tore out Armstrong's heart, crushing it in front of him and finally ending the senator's reign. Though not before Armstrong gave a little heart-to-heart, pun fully intended. Armstrong fought for what he believed in until the very end, and wished the same of everyone in America. That everyone stopped listening to politicians and media and whatnot, and simply found something they can fight for. And he saw that same drive in Raiden. Armstrong died, but died content knowing that he went out fighting for his cause, and that he had found his successor. People the world over would fight and die in wars they never understood, let alone believed in. But Ryden, he and Armstrong were different. They wouldn't let the law get in their way. They'd do whatever it took to make the world they felt was just. Hero, villain, they're both empty titles, but the legacy that Senator Armstrong left is undeniably strong. And anytime you pick up a cause, anytime you look in the face of society and spit on it, you're living the exact American dream that the senator would want you to.
So we'll do whatever it takes to keep it humming along. Even war. Especially war. Bullshit! The Patriots planted the seed. We don't need them around to filter and foster their memes any longer. We're spreading them just fine ourselves. Every American man, woman, and child. We're all sons of the Patriots now!
Funny Valentine knew from a young age that patriotism was what defined the human spirit. His father had been lost to war, but it was such a beautifully tragic loss. To live, to fight, and to die for your nation. Truly, Funny thought, there was no better cause. Valentine almost died in war himself, as his company died in the desert around him. Fortunately, he would stumble upon a long-lost artifact that would let him survive. The Heart of Jesus Christ. So, why not? Kept alive by its mystic properties, Valentine figured that other corpse parts should exist, and began to hatch the idea of assembling the full holy corpse. Wiz, I'm not a religious man, but I grew up in the South with Mama Boomstick preaching gospel to me, and I'm pretty sure it's a whole plot point over there that dude did not leave a corpse behind. Don't question him. Anyways, Valentine was taken prisoner by the enemy and badly whipped, leaving scars across his back in the shape of the American flag? What? Okay, so now we get to question it. Well, at least it helped his public image with the masses, along with his blue-eyed, blonde-haired charm, and led to him becoming president of the United States of America. Though, through all his political maneuvering, he still sought to assemble the corpse, thinking it was the key to saving America. Fortunately, he had a special ability to help him. Valentine was what was known as a stand user, someone whose will and spirit were potent enough to manifest as a literal spirit at their side, granting the wielder superhuman abilities. As far as stands go, Valentine's wasn't that much of a physical bruiser, though it's still able to generate storms across Kansas with its power, and in terms of speed, other stands of its caliber have been able to fight and react at 1,500 times the speed of light. Now, note that we say of its caliber. Valentine's stand, known as Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, or just D4C, is extremely dangerous, despite it lacking much in the way of physical strengths. D4C lets Valentine travel through dimensions as long as he's between things. It could be as simple as sliding under a train, closing a door on himself, or even just lying on the seafloor under the water. He also carries an American flag he can unfurl the tote to travel if need be, and keeps a handkerchief that belonged to his dying father on him at all times. And, like any true American, he carries a good old-fashioned pistol. And this hopping isn't just limited to himself. He can pull objects and people from other universes, including copies of himself, and send his opponents through as well. Though this can be undone in the same way it's inflicted. If one knows to put themselves between things, it's trivial to undo and return home. Something which they definitely want to do, because only one copy of a person or object can exist in the universe at any given time. If two copies exist, they'll be gradually pulled towards each other, slowly breaking down into chunks that fly towards the corresponding pieces and erase each other from reality through paradox. Other than Valentine himself, he's seemingly immune to the effect. And if two copies touch each other, they'll begin to immediately break apart at the point of contact, starting from the outside and working its way in. Valentine can also transfer his consciousness into other Valentines across the multiverse, taking his stand with him, as it's actually unique. Essentially, if he's on the brink of death or injured, he can slip between things to pop into a different body of himself elsewhere in the multiverse, good as new. And, like any stand, D4C can't be seen or hurt by any non-stand user, though damage done to Valentine is mirrored onto D4C. With the public unaware of his power, he'd begin to his scheme to assemble a corpse. the Steel Ball Run, a horse race across America. And while the competition traveled the country, Valentine would have his own agents and mercenaries searching areas for corpse parts. Because yes, for some reason, not only did Jesus have a corpse, not only is it now in random pieces, but they're also all in America. On paper, the plan should have worked, but Valentine was having no luck. That was until he realized there was a traitor in their midst, a woman named Lucy Steele. Lucy had been effectively integrating and assimilating the corpse parts into herself. In essence, she was the Holy Corpse at this point. Valentine originally planned to tear them out, but decided instead to use Lucy herself as the conduit. With the corpse assembled on Valentine's hands, its power flooded through him, and powered up his stand into its ultimate form, Love Train! With Love Train, Valentine was protected by a dimensional barrier around him. You simply just can't hurt him. Any attack is redirected into another point in the world, far away, and converted into misfortune for someone else. He planned to use this to create an America without misfortune, sending it away to other nations instead. It does have some weaknesses though. To attack, Valentine or Love Train have to reach out of the protective field, and can be left vulnerable. And Love Train is tethered to the Holy Corpse, preventing it or Valentine from getting too far away from it. In fact, if the corpse is moved, it actually drags Valentine with it via a psychic tether. Likewise, destroying the corpse will negate Love Train entirely and revert it to D4C. But that's easier said than done when attacks or harm aimed at the corpse always seem to fail due to increasingly bizarre coincidences. It took the stand known as Tusk Act 4, which could harness the concept of the spin to breach the barrier and finally put Valentine down for good, following him no matter where he traveled. Yeah, without an equally metaphysical ability, there's no way to directly overpower the barrier. Despite his attempts at murder, actual successful murders, and absence from the public for the last chunk of the race, the public loved this guy. He had an approval rating of over 90%. Same that he's, dead. But the name Funny Valentine and the legacy he left as president lives on. The ideals of an America where every citizen lives their own perfect life, no stress or conflict needed, and everyone outside the borders can burn. Because an America where everyone can live their dream without worry is the America that the world deserves, whether they like it or not. God bless the USA.
My heart and actions are utterly unclouded. They are all those of justice. You experienced it, didn't you? Only things of happiness and beauty gathered towards the corpse. D4C, Love Train.
Alright, the candidates are set and we've tallied the votes in all counties. It's time for an election!
And that, dear citizens, is why each and every American deserves peace and happiness.
Bullshit!
Sister Armstrong, please watch your language. This will be...
No! I'll tell you what needs watching. People like him! Americans deserve the freedom to live and to fail. The struggle is what makes us American. Let the strongest be the guiding hand of the nation.
Mr. Armstrong, with all due respect.
You're due no respect.
That's quite enough, Mr. Armstrong.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know what I was thinking running for presidency. Yeah. What's the point in trying to change the system from the inside when I can break it in two myself?
How uncouth. Blood on my hands. I hate the feeling.
Don't be so full of yourself.
How?
Nanomachines, son.
Whatever they are, I've had enough of them.
What? Where'd he... That flag, huh? Let's see if this thing's two-way.
Quicker than I expected. Enough.
Huh?
manner of stand is this? Divorcee! That fool. He'll bury himself alive. All the easier for me.
You keep telling yourself that.
No, he knew exactly what he was doing. It wasn't a burial at all. He used the collapsing debris to pin himself down and exit the flag.
Enough of this bullshit!
Watch your tongue, or I'll take it out. Perfect. With my skull between his palm and fingertips. I can finally fix that pesky leg.
What?
We're not done quite yet. Where did he go? Ah, found him.
Showtime! Oh, for fuck's sake! How did you even get this?
I have a very talented cabinet.
Ah! See? See what we could be under the strongest?
Yes, I see. I see I can't afford to let you live.
Hey! What's the big idea?
Lesson 1 of Dimensional Travel. If two copies of the same individual come into contact, they shall be mutually annihilated. Checkmate, Senator.
Valentine!
No, impossible. How did you...
I told you. Nanomachines, son.
Unhand me. Now then, how about we get to the real meat and potatoes of this? Dojan. Tired, are we?
Just getting warmed up.
That's enough for you.
Great. Now where are we, asshole?
I'm not entirely sure, but perhaps I should consider coming here to stock up on racehorses.
Nice bubble you've got there. Can't help but notice your little friend is outside of it. What the?
Oh, by all means, continue. I'm quite enjoying this. Love train, if you would. Why won't you just die already?
I work in politics, pal. If I had a nickel for every time I've heard that.
You work in politics? I'm the President of the United States! Alright, if one wasn't enough, I'll simply have to turn up the heat.
Ah! Nice arm. Ugh. Property of the state now.
No, since he was missing his arm when we got here, there was no arm to be erased. You missed.
Wasn't aiming for you, Blondie.
No! When will you learn, brute? I'm not bowing out that easily.
Then I guess I'll just have to win the old-fashioned way.
Useless! With my legs in the other world, it's impossible for you to pull me through.
Pull you through? Please. I could tear any president in two with my bare hands! Thank you all for coming.
Following the events of tonight's debate, Stephen Armstrong is projected to win the presidency in a landslide. Now back to Carol with the weather. KO! Well, talk about splitting the vote! Bizarre as it may seem, Armstrong had all the tools needed to tear the president apart. Or, well, more like tools singular. Those nanomachines are crazy. Comparing their strengths, Armstrong held a clear advantage, being tens of times stronger than Valentine. Though Valentine held a speed advantage, being several hundreds of times faster than the senator. So let's ask the simple question. Did either have a way to put the other down? The answer is that Armstrong had a somewhat complicated way of winning, but more times than not, it'd be more reliable than Valentine's win conditions. For starters, none of Valentine's basic attacks are going to be hurting Armstrong thanks to that massive stat gap, with or without his stand, as even between his cycles, Armstrong could tank hits from people way stronger than him. Valentine did have a couple ways to potentially win though. Sending Armstrong to another universe, or deconstructing him via paradox with a copy of himself. Let's start with the former, because it's easier to address. All in all, while Valentine could definitely pull off banishment on Armstrong, it's something he could very easily come back from. Armstrong's a pretty smart guy, and would definitely pick up on the fact Valentine was going between stuff to use his powers, and would at least try something similar to get back home, which, as it turns out, is all you need to do to undo the banishment. It simply wouldn't keep him out of action long enough to be considered a win condition. As for the deconstruction, surprisingly, the nanomachines would likely protect Armstrong from it. Given the deconstruction acts pretty slowly, and Armstrong's nanomachines have been able to casually reattach lost limbs, he'd almost certainly be able to hold himself together. While the pull would resume anytime Armstrong had to cycle his machines, it'd only be for a fraction of a split second, nowhere near long enough to do serious damage or overpower the machines. And, given the deconstruction works its way in from the outside, it wouldn't pose an immediate risk to Armstrong's organs. As long as Armstrong could keep his guard up and his nanomachines pumping, he'd be able to more than overpower Valentine trying to drunkify him. So, this raises the follow-up question. How does Armstrong kill Valentine, especially with the Holy Corpse keeping him protected? Well, a little something called Area of Effect. Remember, Armstrong can do more than just punch. He can hit with enough force to pulverize his entire mech and crack the planet enough to start spewing lava. Valentine may be fast enough to react to Armstrong's punches, but reaction speed doesn't really help against attacks with such a wide area. And thanks to the sheer gap in strength, Armstrong would have no problem taking Valentine down in a single blow, preventing any shenanigans with his consciousness-switching pseudo-immortality. Plus, the lava plumes and similar threats coming from the ground up at Valentine would mean it'd be hard for D4C to fully protect him, though Love Train is another story. Yeah, how does Armstrong get through Love Train's failure if the Holy Corpse can't be targeted? The same way he hurts Valentine to begin with, by not directly targeting it. Armstrong may not even know the corpse exists, let alone what it's doing, and it's fully possible it just gets totaled in an area attack, given Armstrong would be falling back on them anyways. Worst case scenario, Armstrong could also abuse the fact Valentine's tethered to it, and do things that wouldn't really harm the corpse but still royally mess up Valentine, like burying it or throwing it into space. We've seen before that the corpse can be moved by outside means, even if Valentine doesn't want it to be. All in all, while Armstrong would definitely need more of a plan than just hit him really hard, Valentine's tricks just weren't enough to secure a win. Funny Valentine was an extremely dangerous and crafty man with an incredibly flexible power, but his speed and dimensional manipulation just weren't enough to overpower Armstrong's raw muscle, ironclad durability, and surprising range. In the end, Valentine just didn't have his ticket to ride, and Armstrong took the win in a landslide. The winner is Senator Stephen Armstrong.